Hi, my name is Jessica Clinton, and I'm a communication behavior teacher for pre-K. And today I am here to talk to you about culture responsive teaching. And so, what exactly is culture responsive teaching? Well, culture responsive teaching is where you basically tailor your lesson to the student's background, their culture. Sometimes cultures can influence the way students learn, what they think about, what they perceive about education, their learning styles, their behavior, how they problem solve, their attitudes towards authority and educators. So, as teachers, we kind of got to recognize that and make sure that we tailor our lessons around it and keep that in mind as we plan our curriculums and what we're going to teach the students for the year. So, what role does culture competencies play in instruction? Culture competencies refer to the educator's ability to understand communication with effective interacting with students from diverse backgrounds. So it means that you basically are keeping in mind some of those things like their learning styles, what they have learned so far from when they're at their language background. You're keeping that in mind as you're planning. For L learners, these skills enable teachers to create a learning environment that respects students' identities and experiences, leading to a better engagement and academic success. So they feel like they're being seen. They feel like they're being understood. So they're basically able to take in what you're teaching them and interact more. How can L culture values and beliefs integrate appropriately in the context of teaching and learning? Educators can integrate L's culture values by using relevant texts. Basically, finding if someone's from Puerto Rico, finding a story about Puerto Rico, maybe a holiday that they celebrate or one of their traditions, and incorporating that into your lesson or scenarios. Allow a student to share their cultural experience. This includes affirming students' identities and promoting a richer experience. What role of culture is student learning? Cultures play a critical role in shaping students' learning, motivating their identities and their approaches to learning, acknowledge culture backgrounds, and boosting their confidence. So it can basically affect their learning style. They can be either a kinetic learner or a visual learner or audio learner. It can affect the way that they look at you as an authority figure, because sometimes some cultures don't respect authority where they're from, so that may cause them to have an attitude towards you or not want to listen to you. So you got to kind of keep those things in mind as you're planning your lessons so that you can kind of help support them in any way that they need. How do school and classroom environments influence language adequacy? And what steps are necessary to create an inclusion environment? A positive school climate and supportive classroom environment are fundamental for effective learner adequacy. The steps to create it includes establishing corroborative norms. So the norms, your expectations, establishing that with them. Fostering acceptance, letting them know no matter where they come from, no matter what they believe in, they're always going to be accepted in your classroom. Providing a safe space for them to practice their language skills. So basically, without being judged, because students sometimes are scared to even practice English because they're scared that they're going to get picked on, that the way they're sounding, they're scared that they're going to get picked on because they're not able to say words right. So we got to let them know it's okay. We got to provide them a safe space and be like, hey, it's okay. We all have something we're struggling with. We all got something we got to work on, and it's fine. What are some strategies for supporting and celebrating cultural diversity within instruction? Celebrating cultural diversity by incorporating multicultural materials, organizing cultural events, promoting cooperative learning that values each student's contribution, encouraging open discussion about cultural differences. So, for example, when I was taking Spanish, my Spanish teacher actually had us choose a country, and we had to research that country. We had to bring in a dish by that country. I would kind of keep that in mind because some students have allergies. I would get permission about that. But that promoted culture. celebration. We were celebrating each culture. We were understanding and diving deep into each culture so we can better understand what's the difference between the way the U.S. is and the way that there are. And it was fun. And everybody felt included. Everybody was excited to talk about their family recipes. So it was doing things like that in your classroom but actually promote a positive environment and make them feel safe. What are some strategies for leveraging home language and culture assets? Leveraging home language by encouraging bilingual reading materials, supporting students in their use of their home language, and in the classroom discussions, connecting lessons to cultural practices for students and communities. So basically, if you provide them like materials in English but give them a Spanish dictionary, or make them be able to completely understand what they're reading, what they're supposed to learn from or engage from what you're trying to teach them, because sometimes those words are foreign to them. Or you can just give them material in their native language and have them read it that way. That way you're supporting them in either way with the material. Okay, supporting needs of ELs in the classroom. Some of those strategies include differentiating. That's a huge thing. You cannot teach the students on one level. You can't teach them because students don't all learn the same. So you got to basically meet them where they're at. Whether it's you got a group of kids that know their alphabet sounds, but you have a group of kids that are still working on identifying letters. You can't teach the students that are still working on identifying letters the sounds yet. They still got to get down what letter A looks like. So you have to differentiate and meet them where they're at instead of just trying to teach them all on one level. And that's important for EL students because EL students don't have the knowledge yet of what certain words mean, what certain letters look like and sound, because it may be different from where they're from. So you got to meet them where they're at. You can't just have them jump right in where you're teaching your students, because they're not quite there yet. Maybe they are, but most likely they're not going to be. What are some opportunities and approaches to meeting the social and emotional needs of students? This is important. Making sure that your students feel heard and supported emotionally and socially is important, because these kids are going on an emotional roller coaster because of where they're from. Everything's foreign. And so you got to sit there and build the relationships with them, provide them mentors, create a pathway for open communication to address their feelings so they won't feel isolated or have anxiety about the language barriers. Invite them to lunch breaks sometimes. Let them bring a friend that they feel comfortable with so they can have that one-on-one conversation without feeling judged. Just make sure you're supporting them socially and emotionally. That is so important. Okay, homeschool connections. How might families and communities practice influence learner? Families and communities practice act and fund knowledge by providing context for language adequacy. This includes cultural narratives, community languages, experience for enriching students. You can also provide them with translators to make sure that they actually understand what they're being told. It's important to make sure that the families feel connected, that the community feels connected, because that's going to be your support for the EL students in their education. What are some strategies to build and foster strong family communities and partnership? You can do this by sending home weekly newsletters in their native language. You can do this by creating school events. For example, my school had an event not too long ago where all the families came out and they enjoy making take games that they can play with their students at home. They had breakfast with them that morning. We do donuts with dads. We do tea with mom. So we make sure that the families are included in their students' education, whether it's academic or social. We make sure families are always included. What are some effective family engagement practices that support highly access to home language, including communication? So involving providing translation services for communities, involving families in cultural presentations, having parents come out and just speak their concerns, basically like a town hall meeting, speaking their concerns, letting you guys know that this is working, this isn't working, making sure that they feel heard, because sometimes these L families don't feel heard, they don't feel seen, and it can be detrimental to a student's education. What are some inclusive communication engagement practices? Include practice encompass partnering with local cultural organizations, establishing communication liaison who speaks the students' home language, organizing events that celebrate cultural diversity, and encourage community input on school decision making. So like I said, making sure that these families are heard is important so that they can make sure that their student is successful, because some families feel scared about sending their kids to a school in America because they feel like that we just don't understand where they're coming from. It has been a pleasure talking to you guys about L students and how to make sure that these families feel heard, how to make sure your students feel heard, identifying their learning skills. We had talked about so many things. And so in conclusion, fostering cultural inclusivity, engaging families, and providing tailoring support are essential to enhancing our student language learners' education experiences. We want them to feel valued. We want them to feel heard. We want them to feel seen. We want to involve our families in the learning process, and we want to create a more supportive and effective environment where all students can thrive and succeed. So I thank you for taking the time to listen, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.